Marvel certainly have proven themselves capable of effectively utilising some of Hollywood's biggest actors in their projects. Saying that, quite a few of these actors were completely wasted in the roles the Marvel overlords provided for them, with some even having regrets taking part in the project in the first place. So with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with What Culture here with 10 MCU actors who were utterly wasted. Number 10. John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly landed a role in the Guardians of the Galaxy as Nova Corpsman Roman Day. Whilst the scenes he appeared in were hilarious, there were few and far between. Now, Day's MCU future is uncertain, with Thanos decimating Xandar moments before the events of Avengers Infinity War, which potentially could mean Reilly will no longer have a role in the MCU as Day. The actor also seems to be left in the dark regarding the fate of his character. In a 2018 interview with comicbook.com, Reilly was asked about his future in the MCU, to which he responded, "I'm not sure. Marvel certainly doesn't tell me what's going on in the Marvel universe. I was just lucky enough to get that job in the first place. It kind of ticked a box for me, you know? Get to be a guy who's in outer space. That's a pretty cool thing to be able to do." Considering how great of an actor Reilly is and the additional humour he brought to the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, it would be a great shame if Roman Day does not return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Number 9. Zachary Levi. First appearing as Fandral, one of the Warriors 3 in 2013's Thor: The Dark World, Zachary Levi was rendered as nothing but a background character in the Thor solo film before being swiftly killed off in Thor Ragnarok. During 2021's DragonCon in Atlanta, Levi was asked about his time working in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in which he seemed relatively grateful for the experience, if a little disappointed. For Levi, working on The Dark World was a dream come true. He grew up devouring Marvel comic books, apparently. According to the Fandral actor, Marvel had persuaded him to sign on for the sequel by promising him a lot more screen time than the character had gotten in the first film. He recalled, "Oh no, we're going to use the Warriors 3 a lot in Thor: The Dark World. A lot. Yeah, you're going to be busy." And I was like, okay, so I signed up for it. Despite this promise, the Warriors 3 received very little screen time in the film. Moreover, Levi was not entirely happy with how his character was used, especially in Ragnarok. He said, "I knew I was going to die in the third one. I didn't know I was going to die having said nothing. Even the few words they gave me were going to be taken away." Number 8. Jude Law. Appearing as Yon-Rogg in 2019's Captain Marvel, Jude Law's Kree villain was anything other than interesting. For as talented as actor Law is, starring in the likes of Martin Scorsese's Hugo and Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, it is a real shame to see how underutilised the actor was in the MCU with Captain Marvel. Having under 12 minutes of screen time, Law's Yon-Rogg was limited to a few bland and mostly uneventful action scenes before he became Captain Marvel's punching bag in the final third of the film, after he was revealed to be the most predictable bait-and-switch villain in the Marvel Universe. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Law mentioned that his Sherlock co-star Robert Downey Jr. told him not to worry about the intricacies of the MCU. He said, "He talked a little bit about how fitting this one piece into a bigger picture that someone else has got their eyes on and giving yourself over to that. It's not about trying to understand everything, just do your piece." Clearly, Jude Law never got too involved in the broader story of the MCU, and with his character kicking the bucket by the end of the film, the actor likely will not return to the universe. Number 7. Tommy Lee Jones. During the early era of the MCU, Tommy Lee Jones appeared in 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger in the role of Colonel Chester Phillips. For the most part, Tommy Lee Jones's Chester Phillips was a relatively fun but stern character. During the press junket for the film, the actor described the Colonel as the standard character, and that he thought the movie did a good job for putting forth the war image and action. Although Tommy Lee Jones had nothing but good things to say about the film, it seems like he will never return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When Disney announced the new show What If, the House of Mouse revealed that they would be retelling some classic Marvel stories with a twist, and it was hoped that the Men in Black actor would reprise the role of Chester Phillips in the Agent Carter storyline. However, when the series released on Disney+, the Colonel only appeared briefly in one episode and had no lines. So unfortunately, it seems like Tommy Lee Jones's appearance in the Marvel Universe was a one and done, and the actor will likely never return for later projects. Number 6. Christopher Eccleston. The Doctor Who actor played the evil Malekith in Thor: The Dark World. Unfortunately, Malekith was one of the blandest, most uninspiring characters the MCU has ever produced, with Eccleston speaking out about his time working on the film. At the New York Comic Con in 2019, Eccleston spoke about Thor: The Dark World and how he didn't particularly enjoy the final cut of the film. According to Eccleston, there was a lack of humour in the film, he felt. Eccleston also recalled the miserable experience he had, especially because of the makeup routine he had to endure. He said, "I was in makeup for 6-7 hours every day. They didn't tell me that up front, so I wasn't pleased about it." Despite his apparent distaste for the making of the film, Eccleston doesn't seem to want to rule out returning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Doctor Who actor enjoyed Thor: Ragnarok, describing it as brilliantly written. Moreover, Eccleston stated that if it was the guy who wrote the third, I'll do that, meaning that he may return to the MCU. Still, as it stands, Christopher Eccleston could have been put to much better use in the Marvel movie machine than what he had been. Number 5. Ben Kingsley. For what is often considered to be one of the most controversial films in the MCU, Iron Man 3 was very different to the bombastic, light-hearted films Marvel fans had come to expect by 2013. Shane Black's entry into the Marvel Universe focused far less on the action and instead provided a profound and believable account of how post-traumatic stress disorder can affect even the strongest of people. A major point of contention in the film comes down to how Iron Man's arch-nemesis, the Mandarin, is used. From the beginning, the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley, is built up to be an evil terrorist hell-bent on destroying Tony Stark. However, towards the middle of the film, it is revealed that Kingsley's Mandarin is actually an actor known as Trevor Slattery, and that Aldrich Killian is the real villain. Many hoped for some sort of redemption for Kingsley's Mandarin, and with the announcement that he would appear in 2021's Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings, this became the new expectation for the film. Unfortunately though, just like Iron Man 3, Kingsley's Trevor Slattery is treated as a joke, and is ultimately nothing more than a background character in the MCU. Number 4. Christian Bale. For as prestigious and accomplished an actor Christian Bale is, it came as a shock when he was announced to have landed a part in Thor's new film Thor: Love and Thunder. Considering he'd played Batman in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy for 7 years, many thought the actor would not be bothered to return to the superhero genre. Still, as time went on, it was gradually revealed that Bale would be playing the villain, Gorr the God Butcher, making the 4th Thor solo film even more exciting than it was initially expected to be. Even so, when the film released, it soon became apparent that Bale's Gorr had very little screen time, with the film choosing to instead cram in as many quippy one-liners and jokes as possible, rather than showcasing the God Butcher in action. The most irritating part about Gorr in Love and Thunder is that Bale's performance as the God Butcher was great, and the best parts of the film are when he is on screen. Bale managed to find balance of making the character both quirky and intimidating, and so it was very disappointing to see how little play the character got before being killed off in the film's 3rd act. Number 3. Laurence Fishburne. Best known for his role as Morpheus in the Matrix trilogy, Laurence Fishburne arrived in the MCU as Dr. Bill Foster. Considering how brilliant Fishburne is in all 3 of the Matrix films, it was not unreasonable to expect great things from the actor when he was announced to be taking part in the Ant-Man sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Unfortunately for Fishburne, the character only had 7 minutes of screen time, with nothing particularly noteworthy to do throughout the film. Throughout the film, Fishburne appears to be bored, and his performance is lacking in energy. Still, that may just be because Ant-Man and the Wasp is one of the weakest entries in the MCU, with the plot and characters being rather bland throughout. Even so, hiring Laurence Fishburne to join the MCU only to give him barely any screen time is a bizarre choice from the Marvel higher-ups. However, this may be a calculated move by Marvel, considering that Bill Foster eventually becomes Goliath in the comics. So perhaps Fishburne will not be wasted, and we may see him return as the hero later on. But for now, Fishburne has very much been wasted in the MCU. Number 2. Donald Glover. Only appearing in Spider-Man Homecoming, Donald Glover played Aaron Davis, who is best known as Miles Morales' uncle and the Spider-Man villain, the Prowler. Glover's scene in the film was a fun inclusion, as fans had wanted the actor to play the Morales version of Spider-Man. Clearly, Marvel believed Glover had grown out of the role, especially since Morales is meant to be a teenager, and so he had instead been cast as his uncle. Even so, whilst the scene was an enjoyable watch, it was essentially nothing more than a brief cameo. Some fans are still optimistic that Glover will return return as Davis in the MCU, with him potentially going toe-to-toe with Tom Holland's Spider-Man as the Prowler. With Spider-Man's world being completely reset after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, this certainly is a possibility, even if it is a far-fetched idea. However, as of yet, Glover hasn't reprised the role, with nothing indicating he would be returning for a follow-up to No Way Home. Worse still, it's becoming increasingly unlikely that we will ever see Glover again in the MCU, considering how busy the actor has gotten with other projects, to such an extent that he has reportedly had to pause quite a few, such as the Star Wars Lando spin-off series for Disney+. Number 1. Mads Mikkelsen. Arguably one of the best actors in Hollywood, Mads Mikkelsen was cast to play the villain for Doctor Strange's first solo film, Kaecilius. Unfortunately for Mikkelsen, Kaecilius was one of the most boring villains to ever come out of the MCU, with the character ultimately boiling down to a predictable moustache-twirling bad guy. Whilst Doctor Strange isn't the worst Marvel entry, it certainly isn't one of the strongest, with Mikkelsen's lacking Kaecilius being one of the main reasons why the film is as forgettable as it was. What is most hurtful about this is that Mikkelsen is one of the most talented actors Marvel has ever gotten to work with, and seeing him being wasted on such a disappointingly one-dimensional character is very painful. It very much is a shame Marvel decided to hire Mikkelsen for this role, considering as Kaecilius was killed off by the end of the film and added very little to the story. Mikkelsen really deserved to be cast as a recurring villain, whether that be Galactus or Doctor Doom, but now that he's come and gone from the MCU, it is probable that we will never see Mikkelsen in a Marvel project again, making his appearance in Doctor Strange all the more heartbreaking. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.